Welcome to the High Queen podcast.
Prepare to embark on a journey through books you'll fall in love with, as well as the leading ladies who inspire our own stories.
Our friendship blossomed from pageantry to page turners, sparking a desire to show other women that they too can be their own main character.
I'm Miranda.
And I'm Autumn.
And together we'll lead you through books of all genres, from epic fantasy series, romance, all levels of spice, even to autobiographies of real-life heroines.
Now we are some passionate bitches, so remember, this podcast is rated R, and prepare your ears. It's time to celebrate the heroines who redefine what it means to be brave and bold.
So grab your books, beverage, and bestie and crack open the brand new series. We've got Throne of Glass, page 1, and let's do a little check-in with each other.
Okay, my check-in is my husband decided to vacuum the house right now. 1 second.
He says, I'm being helpful.
Why? I know. It's so, yeah. Ugh. Ugh.
They pick the worst times for stuff.
We love them. In the hallway? I thought he was just going to do the kitchen. Alas, the door is shut. Hopefully that will block some of that out. My check-in is, I'm alive. That's literally all I wrote down is I'm alive. Life is crazy. I'm up till midnight every single night, just fitting in what I need to get done in a day. So, we're just going to breathe. I look at my calendar and I take one day at a time. And then we go to the next day. And then soon it shall be July and I'll breathe again. That's
maybe at another point in this journey, we will not read so much at this point in time. We've just got some books to get through. But yeah, I don't have a check-in. Life is life. There's not a whole lot new going on.
Yeah. Well, I am very excited to get into this book. I mean, getting into the series, I think with any series diving into the first book, there's like so much to ease into. You're figuring it out. You've never met these characters before. And there's a lot of world building, especially as I was writing out our summary today and our world building sections. I was like, there's a lot of world building in so many different places mentioned so that I'm trying to keep straight in my head. So it made me very thankful to have the map at the front of the book. I feel like if you're an audiobook person, like solely, you definitely need to look up the map. It's going to be helpful. I do enjoy our character, Celaena. I think she's witty, talented, even amidst a bit of chaos. She does take a lot of time to find beauty. There are moments where I'm like, you're definitely 18. But for the most part, I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, for sure. I will agree with that. They mention iron a lot. My brain is still in Prithian. Mm-hmm. There were little things I was like, this probably doesn't matter, or at least doesn't matter right now. But yeah, this book is good so far. I just don't feel like I really know enough or have enough connection to our characters yet to be like really enthralled with it, but I am enjoying the story so far. I like this sort of beginning of the champions competition. It's making me think of like Hunger Games when they're being watched and like bet on for whether they're going to get like money and supplies in the games and stuff. So yeah, it's fun. I'm super excited to get to know, we were introduced to so many people in places like Autumn was just saying, and it's like when we started ACOTAR or when y'all started ACOTAR, like you have to get into it, right? And you have to, sometimes I feel like these first books even are the one that really need like that second read through, or you need a space like this to be able to kind of like grasp the concept of everything that's happening.
Yes, 100%, which is why I'm so thankful for like our summary and world building section today, and why I specifically only designated these first 15 chapters, because it's going to allow us to like read it, go through the podcast together, all of us, and digest it again. And then I think reading on will provide so much more clarity and understanding since we've had a little bit more time to comprehend what just happened.
Let it sink in.
What's the story? Let's dive in. Okay, so we begin this story in the season of autumn. We're in the salt mines of Endovier, where our heroine, Celaena Sardothien, has been for over a year. a slave camp where they still use swords and knives, telling us what type of a time period we're going to be located in, and making it feel not so far removed from the world that we just left in our last series. Right away, we're set up to think that Celaena must be rather strong, deadly, or powerful simply because she needs a half dozen guards to escort her around the camp. Why? Well, because she's Adarlan's most notorious assassin. We get a sense right away of how adept and observant she is. And although she notes it is out of the usual for her to be led around the official building of the slave camp, she outwits the person leading her around, who's trying to confuse her on directionality, because even blindfolded, she is constantly assessing her surroundings. And we learn that this stranger who's leading her is named Chaol Westfall. He is captain of the Royal Guard of Adarlan. They make their way to a room where the crown prince of Adarlan awaits them. And what does he want? For Celaena to make a deal with him and compete as him, Dorian, champion in his father's competition that could win her the job as the, quote, official assassin for Adarlan. And then she'll work 4 years until she's earned her freedom. But she must compete under an alias. No one knew that Celaena Sardothien, the most notorious assassin, was in fact a young woman. And it'd look bad for the king if everybody found out. Now, what would our enemies say if they knew that the king and everybody else was just petrified by a girl? Ugh. Celaena agrees, saying she's no fool and is taking she's no fool and she's taken away to become more presentable because she was covered in a lot of disgusting stuff, coated in dirt, literally describes kneeling and then coming off the floor and there being like a mark of where she was.
Yeah, now, that's unfortunate.
They go to clean her up. The next morning, Chaol comes to retrieve her, and together with Dorian and Duke Parrington, they reach the wall to leave the slave camp. As they do, she reminds herself that the scars she possesses will never let her forget that while she is free, others are not. They travel through an ancient forest where Celaena recounts her past to herself and keeps her knowledge of the land's history from those around her. But she does urge the soldiers to be quiet in the forest and be mindful of speaking ill words of the long-lost fairies. The next morning, she awakens surrounded by little white flowers. They continue their journey and arrive outside Rifthold, the capital city of Adarlan, where we first see the glass castle. They rest for the night before continuing, but the next day, we have a new point of view. So quick with our point of views.
Right, now, it's different.
Yeah, we are in Dorian's mind, and he is looking at Celaena thinking that there is something rather sad about her and how she gazes at the stars and the stars who gaze back. Well, doesn't that feel familiar?
There's little bits in here that you're like, this is giving ACOTAR.
This is giving the same author.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
they arrive at the castle the next morning, and Celaena is met with opulence. In her rooms, she turns on her strategic mind and makes a makeshift weapon out of her hairpins. Savvy girl. And eventually she settles into bed and finally finds some comfort. The next morning, she is returned to her spectacular form. She's clean. She's got her hair done. She's wearing a nice dress. Okay. All the finery. And apparently she likes that too. Now, across the castle, Dorian meets with his father, a cold and callous man. And the king doesn't seem too keen on Celaena being there. I guess this was all Dorian's idea, but we'll see how that pans out. As Celaena gets a tour of the castle, we discover there is a strange clock tower, a giant library, and a chatty group of women. Celaena decides to get dressed up to the nines and play into the quote prince's whore idea, but but then she's surprised to be rushed off to her very first competition meeting. Here, she meets the king and becomes pale as she recounts their last meeting where she was sentenced to slavery. Here she meets the 26 other competitors that she must battle for her freedom. The competition will last 13 weeks, and there will be a challenge every week to determine eliminations, ending in a final duel. The meeting ends and Dorian reveals his grand plan. He'll give Celaena a secret identity so that the other competitors don't know who she is. She is Lillian Gordana. And as we're strolling, a woman from that chatty group named Caltaine finds them. And they do some courtly fake niceties. And it turns out that Dorian and Celaena have a very similar humor style, and that Chaol is quite the typical oblivious guy to most social situations. The next day, the competition officially begins. All the champions meet for training, where Celaena marks Cain as a future mark for death. Chaol tests Celaena's sword skills, where they impress each other. And while Celaena shows her grace as an asset, she still has more ways she can improve. They then introduce the group, and we meet Cain from the White Fang Mountains, Xavier Farol from who's a master thief from Melisande, Knox Owen, who Celaena had heard of, likable, dark hair, gray eyes, and Bill Chastain, the Eye Eater, Ned Clement, or Scythe, who hacked apart temple priestesses, and someone named Grave, who has a wicked face that makes people look away, and is the kind of assassin that doesn't stop at just killing, especially with females. That is left open to interpretation, but I think we all can know where that's going. Now, they find out that their first test for this competition will be in 5 days. Training continues, and Cain is leading the pack in many ways, while Celaena works to maintain her spot in the middle. Reality sets in at the end of a huge run with the group when she has to lie to vomit in private so that no one views her as weak. Clearly, she needs to improve her cardio. Now, knowing this, she turns her own bedroom into a gym. She's doing pull-ups on the beams and sharpening her edge. She does get a day off eventually, though, and Chaol and Celaena, are strolling when they run into Caltaine again, but with a new guest, Princess Nehemia of Eelway. Much to the princess's surprise, Celaena speaks with her in the princess's native language, gaining her trust quickly, and the same for Celaena, as she tells the rest of the group, "Oh, we were simply talking about the weather." But they were definitely doing hot goss. The two of them begin to build a bond, and in a place where both of them feel kind of alone, that could be the start of something much needed. We now enter Chaol's point of view, as he watches in awe and amusement at the amount that Celaena can eat, and in Chaol's mind, we learn a few notable things about what's going on in the palace. The king didn't take any of his suggested guards on the trip, and some of the dogs went missing and were found half-eaten. Now, Chaol can't quite make up his mind about how he feels about Celaena, but it seems like he's just waiting for the other shoe to drop. The next 4 days are spent training, but when it is time for them all to meet again, something's wrong. One of the competitors is found dead and ripped wide open, shredded to ribbons. It's Bill Chastain, the Eye Eater. Personally, I'm cool with that. I didn't really need that description if it was going to happen.
Right. Didn't necessarily need or want more from him.
Now,
Sure.
Yeah. Something's clearly wrong in this castle. As they await for their first challenge, Chaol and Celaena begin to open up to each other about their past, and Celaena makes a new ally with Knox Owens. It's now the day of the first challenge, and it's archery, one of the first skills that Arobin Hamel taught her. Although she was told not to show off, her pride gets the better of her. And she's not only the only one to hit the absolute center of bullseye of the most challenging target, but she walks away thinking she didn't feel that she won it all. Well, all eyes are on you now, Lillian.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so again, I already name dropped a lot of things, a lot of places. I feel like we should break each of them down a little bit. Yeah?
Go for
Okay,
it.
so we're going to start with Adarlan. It is mentioned quite a bit, right? We got Adarlan's assassin, King of Adarlan, Crown Prince. We can hear this a lot. If you look in the map, it's kind of centrally located. And Rifthold is the capital city within Adarlan. It's where the Glass Castle is located. It has a royal sigil of a golden wyvern. And there used to be a Fey king there named Brannon. And Adarlan is currently at war with a place named Wendlin, which is kind of just pointed to off the map, so we're going to assume across a sea somewhere. Now, this glass castle is gargantuan. It is a vertical city of shimmering towers and bridges, and it's built above the original stone castle, and apparently it cost the kingdom all of the kingdom's riches to construct. It's massive. Now, the grand library within this glass castle holds over 1 million books, and the last time it was counted was a very long time ago, so there could be more. There is also a rumor that there's a second library deep within the catacombs. There is also notably a part of this glass castle is a clock tower. It's described as wretched. Chaol says he wouldn't go near it as a child, and Celaena says it makes an awful sound. The tower is made of an inky black stone with 2 gargoyles' wings spread for flight perched on each of the 4 clock faces, and it feels out of place within a garden. Celaena says it belongs before the gates of Wyrd, and that's capital W, Y-R-D. And it was built around 20 years ago, right after Dorian's birth. And there's a tile in front of it that holds a strange mark, a circle, and hooked vertical lines that going through it. And it seems like maybe the gargoyle is pointing at it. New place, the salt mines of Endovier, also located within Adarlan. Now, it's a host to slaves that are whipped, beaten, barely see the daylight, and the prisoners are made up of poor citizens, Adarlan's newest conquests of the lands it's taking over, and some people who are accused of practicing magic. Most of them are from a place called Eelway, and that is a land that is still kind of fighting. We'll get to that in a little bit. And the average person's lifespan within the salt mines is 1 month, making Celaena's 1 year seem pretty notable. There are also mass graves dug each week there. Now, Calcutta is another type of slave camp, but it's the southern sister labor camp. Okay, now next land we have mentioned very quickly and briefly is a witch kingdom. I was very excited when I saw this, and I was like, as you know, coming from Prithian, we were like, anytime the word witch was brought up, we're like, what? What is that?
I have to like retrain my brain a little bit.
We got a whole witch kingdom. So clearly prevalent here, all right? Known as
Witch Kingdom-ish. Witch Kingdom-ish. They don't know. Like I noted Celaena's like, I met someone from there. They were just human and they bled like one. Which I was like, blood, normal blood. Again, wrong series. Brains in the wrong place. But
I think all types of blood should be noticeable. Yeah.
I hope that the Witch Kingdom turns into more than just normal people being called witches. Give us witches. Give us more.
Well, apparently the people of the land are cruel and lovely, or known to be. Then we have a place called the White Fang Mountains. It has tales of brutality and fierceness, and many of them rebelled against Adarlan and died, or killed themselves and their own families before ever being taken as slaves. There's another land called Terrasen, and this is further north than Adarlan, way towards the top, and this is apparently Celaena's original home. It is a host of a former library that included a lot about magic, and it used to have a lot of fae. Okay, so we know that fae and fairies and magic and witches are all somehow, and maybe wyverns, they're all making an appearance in some form or fashion. We're getting previews here. It's exciting. There is a city
Give
in
me witches,
Terrasen.
give me fairies, give me
Yes,
dragons.
I'll take it all. Apparently, there's a city called Paranth located within the territory of Terrasen. And it is Terrasen's second largest city. And it is also the home of the young thief Nox Owen, who Celaena is allying with. All right, so then we have Eelway, super duper further south, almost towards the bottom of this continent near a sea. Eelway still has its own king, and this is where Princess Nehemia is from. And located there is also a city, and it's the city of Benjali, a hot place with a river palace that smells like lotus blossoms. And they had a lot of wonderful information, but their books, museums, and universities were burned by Adarlan. I thought that was quite interesting. You don't often hear about universities mentioned within this series, so that was kind of cool.
It felt like a weird, we feel like medieval timesy a little bit. It's like in Prythian, and we gotta compare with what we have, like Lucian's Eye and the mechanics and stuff.
Yes.
And so I agreed, reading University just felt like this very sort of separate thing to the world that I felt like we were getting. So that really piqued my interest of like, oh, interesting, like a university of all things.
For sure. I think what I love is like we have some of this more primitive style, like battling and technology, but then knowledge is valued, therefore a university could exist. That's neat. The technology one is the one that gets me every time. We're like, mechanical eye?
Yeah.
But I mean, c'est la vie. All right, now, next we have the wind-swept dunes of the Red Desert. This is like if Adarlan's in the center, Terrasen's above it, Eelway's way below. This is way off to the west. Okay. Windswept dunes of the Red Desert were the home to some people called the Silent Assassins. Apparently, Celaena had spent a month training with them there. Next, we have Fenharrow. Fenharrow is kind of like, let's call it slightly east-south of Adarlan. There is a city there called Belhaven. It's a city where Celaena is supposed to be pretending to be from as Lillian. And also, apparently, they have a really good fishing port. Fun fact. Okay, now, next we have Aniel. Aniel is where Chaol is supposed to be from. And it is specifically the city of, like, by the lake, by the Silver Lake. There we go. And this is also the group or the city that helps keep the White Fang Mountain people kind of at bay and where they're, quote, supposed to be. Okay, so there's all our places. Our map is huge. Our map already feels so much bigger. If we like go back in time and I think about Feyre, and it was so much easier to absorb places because she knew nothing. Therefore, you only learned one thing at a time with her, and you could like
Celaena
slowly
knows
build
everything.
it. Celaena's like, girl, I've been everywhere. I know everywhere. Let me just drop it. And I'm like, hang on. What? Wait. So hopefully that allowed all of us to digest just a little bit more. So let's dive into some history, or that's at least how I labeled this. I found very noticeable this fact that magic has disappeared. Okay, which means it existed at once upon a time. The king claimed that magic was an affront to the goddess. Oh, goddess. We have a goddess somewhere. At least we've got similarities happening here. And magic was an affront to her and the gods, and to wield it was to impertinently imitate their power is what it says. Interesting. Okay. Magic disappeared of its own accord, and then the books were burned. Those two things feel at odds with one another. Like, why would magic just suddenly disappear? And then we're like, burn the books. Mm. And then all the storefronts, sacred places, anything that had to do with magic was destroyed. This one really got me. The seers. Oh, we have seers like Elaine. And the healers, people, were burned or sent to prisons where they survived maybe that 1 month. Okay, so then we had fairies and fae mentioned, saying that as magic was outlawed and disappeared, they were also driven out. Fairies being gnomes, sprites, nymphs. Nymph, we've got mentioned because that reminds us of Gwen, and goblins. And the fae, larger human-like cousins to the fairies, immortal, the original inhabitants and settlers of the continent, and the oldest beings of Aurelia. Okay, so they existed, past tense, and they fled, sought shelter in some of the untouched areas of the world, and were hunted by the king who outlawed them, magic, and anyone with magic in their blood. And some believe now that they never existed. Okay, so that tells me we are reading currently about humans. Okay. I'm going to come back to this word. Wow. Well, that was confusing. But Celaena says, "Oh, word help me." So word, a replacement for like Lord or God?
They also say gates of the word and into hell when she's talking about finding her freedom. She would go through the gates of the word and into hell. So I also really wanted to know, how are we using this word?
Yeah.
W-O-R-D versus W-Y-R-D.
That's the way I'm interpreting it right now, is it's kind of like kind of like how we say, "Oh, cauldron, boil me," or "Thank the mother." Word feels synonymous here so far in the context it's being used. And the only other place that I really, or like history thing I wanted to mention, is the Assassin's Guild. And that is in Rifthold, where Celaena is currently at, but apparently where she came from, because that's where the King of Assassins, her former boss, Arabin Hamel, was. Apparently it requires a membership and years of training and a super impressive track record to be a part of the Assassin's Guild. And that is what I know. What do you know?
I know nothing more than you do. I think we should dive into our FMC.
Yeah, Celaena Sardothien / Lillian Gordana. We're going to just refer to as many things here. Okay, so she's from Terrasen. She had to flee 10 years ago when her family was murdered. That's terribly sad, to be 8 years old and your family's murdered.
Yes, it is. And I already have a theory.
Ooh, love. Okay. Do you want to share it now or later?
I don't think it matters where it's dropped, but keep going. Tell us about Celaena.
Okay. She was trained to be an assassin since she was 8 years old by the King of Assassins, who found her half dead on the bank of a frozen river on the border of Adarlan and Terrasen. Apparently, she chose to jump into that river to escape a terrible fate, and then she was brought to his keep and was never allowed to return home to Terrasen. So she's orphaned, and she was given a new name that, she says, given a new name that everyone would one day fear. Okay, so Celaena, fun fact, she's 18. I forgot that, to be honest. I read that again in the book, and I was like, I just felt you were way older. But I mean, maybe when you're forced to become an assassin at 8 years old, you grow up a little bit faster than everybody else.
Yeah. There's definitely been things in her life to make her mature. Yeah, assassin, slave.
She's not giving 18 to me.
There are times that I'm like, okay, you are definitely young.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely more of a mature 18-year-old.
She has blue eyes with gold around her pupils. Love. Golden hair. Considers herself to have been beautiful in the past and sounds proper and is offended when suggested that she should sound like a slave since that's where she came
Mm.
from. She's like, why would you, like, of course I know how to speak. Loves to read and can play the piano forte. Side note, I love that we're calling it a piano forte because this is also giving era. We have courts and court ladies, piano fortes. Because if those of you music history buffs know that eventually it's just called the piano. So, time frame. Okay, hates fish. I just thought that was quirky and fun. Can speak multiple languages. We got a bilingual queen, all right? She speaks the language of Eelway as well, but apparently more like a peasant than a royal, according to Nehemia. And she used to possess magic, but hasn't thought about the ability since she had long lost it. And she describes her own voice as cold and articulate. All of these things are like such huge character drops. I love how much we get so quickly.
We learn a lot about her very fast.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then I just wrote down some fun descriptors that are helping me kind of decide who she is in my own mind as a character. And these are some of the things that are informing that for me. She had not let herself taste fear in a while. Like it's a choice for her, which I thought was interesting. She uses the quote, "I will not be afraid." She says, you know, they're words that keep her from breaking. And I think it shows us that while we may have just met her, she clearly has a strong will forged within her. She says those words quite often, actually, in these first 15 chapters. Her smile, she describes, almost feels like a weapon, which I think any woman knows what that means and how you can utilize that. And, quote, if she were bound for the gallows, she would certainly not spend the last moments of her life groveling in submission. I think that tells us a little bit about her as well. She doesn't smile. She doesn't smile, or she knew. She's in a scenario where she goes, she's not going to smile, or she knew that it would open her up to a realm that had long been closed. So it has a little bit of like fear of feeling positivity? Question mark. She did attempt to flee when she was in the slave camp. And I thought it was funny because they're telling the story and Chaol's telling Dorian the story. And she's like, you didn't even tell him the best part. There's just like sassiness in her that she's unafraid to pull out even when she's like bound and dressed in rags. She's like, no, but you didn't even tell him the best part. I almost made it. And then I lost my place here. Okay. She loves a good dress. The dress descriptions in the first 15 chapters here, we're getting white and lavender, like sagey green, all sorts of immaculate dresses. And I think it's hilarious that she did have to show up to her first meeting with all the other assassin competitors in immaculately ornate gowns. She's like, give me the best you got, okay? Shows up looking like a fairy tale princess with a room full of like people with rotting teeth and a guy named Eye Eater. Love this scenario.
Feels right.
Yeah, it makes sense later with like Dorian's reveal. He's like, no, we're not gonna like get him on to you yet.
It worked out. It worked out well.
Now she is constantly assessing and remarking in her own head how she would plan to take someone out, which is fun to see those parallels. She's like, yeah, ooh, look at my great dress. Look at the way my hair is pinned up. I will literally bitch slap you. Just a back and forth all the time. She alludes to the fact that she thinks she knows the reason she was captured and who betrayed her, but she isn't ready to face it. Okay, so we've got some inner demons, some inner turmoil, something to find later.
Well, she's got some trust issues because she even says that summer she spent with the silent assassins of the Red Desert, that something happened there, making her not really trust other women. So she's definitely got trust issues.
Speaking of her past, she drops a lot of little things about her past. She even remarks that she in her past has freed slaves from a pirate ship. Also, pirate ship. Just
Kind of
restate
hoping we
that.
get more
What?
pirates too. Pirates and witches and
Y'all, it's a
fairies. Oh
long book
my.
series, so there's plenty of room to fit this stuff in.
Where do the pirates land? Maybe Empire of Storms?
Ooh,
That seems like a, I don't know,
good
feels
potential, yeah?
piratey.
I love it. Now, this story that she tells Chaol feels very important to understanding her past and who she is now, so I am going to reread it. It really hit me. When I was 12, Arab and Hamel decided I wasn't nearly skilled at swordplay with my left hand, so he gave me a choice. I could either break my right hand, or he could either break my right hand, or I could do it myself. That night, I put my hand against the door frame and slammed the door shut on it. I split my hand wide open and broke 2 bones. It took months to heal. Months during which I could only use my left hand. All right, so I think that tells you exactly who she is right there.
She has got
Like,
an iron will.
ruthless too. I mean, and the way she was raised. Maybe not, we don't know really much about how she was raised in those first 8 years, but many of her 10 most formative years have been quite brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm very intrigued by Celaena. What were some of your thoughts on
Yes.
her?
Speaking of intriguing, she says, I once had magic, or alludes to that. And then I
Yeah.
want to bring back up, while they're in the woods overnight and she wakes up to find the little white flowers and the tiny footprints of sprites or whatever in her, tent. I'm like, so Fae descendant? Is that going to be
Mm.
like a vein, Feyre and Nesta and perhaps Elaine someday have to figure out the power within themselves. So maybe that's the power within Celaena. She's got a little bit of Fey in her. But I really thought that was something that I wanted to keep an eye on and hold on
Yeah.
to. Um, Speaking of connecting her to previous mass verse ladies, her assessing her living quarters when she arrives and making her little hairpin, I don't know,
Shiv.
yeah.
That's
I
what it
just
is.
it makes me think of Feyre so much when she arrives at the spring
Yeah.
court and is like,
Setting
creating
up
a
her
trap
traps.
and same vibes, same
Yeah.
vibes.
Well,
Which
and
I
y'all,
thought was
we
so
are
funny.
we are going to go back and forth and compare, and we kind of gave that warning. I mean, if I didn't say it explicitly, let me say it right now. If you haven't read ACOTAR, there will be spoilers in this entirety of Throne of Glass because we are doing it in this order. So just prepare yourself. Maybe go back and read ACOTAR, listen to our ACOTAR episodes, and then join us for Throne of Glass. We will be doing comparisons and bringing up the series. And that's because it's very well known that things reference one another. That is not a secret. So spoilers ahead.
For sure. Same thing, thinking back to our previous series, her writing the letter to Dorian and him sort of writing back sort of playfully and flirtily reminds me of recent Feyre in a way. Um,
Yes. He does kind of give that vibe a little, right?
a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't gotten a ton of Dorian. I definitely want
Mm-hmm.
some more of him and Chaol. I need to know more about them. Speaking of which, Celaena says she finds Chaol handsome when he
Mm.
finally removes his hood. And I said, future love interest? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Or perhaps it's Dorian, who she finds devastatingly handsome. And
Right?
there's these little mentions. Guys, it's a romantasy series, okay? We're gonna
Yeah.
talk about the little things that pique our interest. Dorian says, how unusual for them to notice you when his dogs go straight up to Celaena. They're wagging their tails. They're excited to see her. I'm like, okay, I don't know if that plays into a future love interest or not. But Philippa, who is basically our, you know, guiding, oh my God, why did I just lose her
She's
name?
our Alice.
Thank you. She is. I was like, why can I see her in my head? Our tree bark mother. But she's our Alice. Maybe a little less caring. She gives a little more
Yeah.
bristly, a little more brass. But anyways, Philippa, she looks at Celaena while she's all dressed up, and it's funny. She goes, "It's such a pity you are who you are. I wouldn't be surprised if you." Which I was like, "Damn, okay, what shit?
Wow,
Thanks,
thanks.
thank you. It's such a pity you are who you are." Okay, I could just feel like the little bit that I've gotten of Celaena, I feel like that would have just given her like deadpan, like nostrils flaring, a little bit of like, what? What the fuck? You don't know me,
Yeah.
but it's
Or
it's
maybe
such a
it's
pity
like
you are who you are.
respect. Okay, you say it how it is.
Maybe. Yeah. She continues on though. Philippa says, I wouldn't be surprised if you managed to ensnare some lord into marriage, maybe even his highness, if you were charming enough.
Mm.
A little foreshadowing. I don't know.
It
We
feels like
shall
that.
see. It does. It absolutely does. But we shall see what happens. I have no
Mm.
idea. So, the first man she thinks is handsome, Chaol, dive on into him.
Yes, kale, which if you're reading can be rather interesting to figure out how to pronounce. So there you all go.
I thought
he,
Cole.
yeah, yep, yep. I'm was thankful for the audiobook on that one. I'm like, yes, let me not look at it and just memorize how it sounds. All right. Well, Kale is captain of the Royal Guard of Adarlan. He's tall, fit, short chestnut hair, rugged golden brown eyes, and is apparently 22 years old. So just like a little bit older than Celaena. He also enjoys a good book and notably does not use the title of Lord. So he grew up with Dorian and was Lord of Aniel, but then abdicated the title to his little brother and left to become the apprentice to capture the guard upon Dorian's suggestion. Apparently, this made their family a little tense. Okay.
Mm.
Um, I do note and feel like he's put off by Celaena, like from the very beginning, which does make it surprising when he takes her to see the king for the first time. He notices, wow, she's like scared out of her mind. She's going super pale
Mm-hmm.
and starts to comfort her. He's like, he's just a man, but a man who deserves to be treated with the respect of his title. And even goes as far as telling her she looks pretty. There's already feels like he's kind of, or she's growing on him throughout this.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said in the summary, it definitely feels like he's waiting for the other shoe to drop because he knows her past and he definitely holds it against her
Mm-hmm.
for sure. He's a conundrum. Feels like if Dorian's all swagger, Kale is all rules.
Yes, absolutely. Very by the book.
Yeah, yeah. That was what I noted
Absolutely.
about his character here.
Yeah, we don't get a ton. We don't get a ton about Kale yet, but I'm interested to learn more. He definitely seems like an enigma a little bit. Same thing with
Mm-hmm.
Dorian. We get so little, we're clearly in Celena's point of view for most of this, as we should
Yeah.
be. But
And even when we're not, the areas are only the areas where we're in Kale or Dorian's point of view kind of give a reflection of them, but are a lot about the other people in the room.
right, we're mostly looking at Celaena or the people that she's around for the most part,
Yeah,
or the
yeah.
king or whatever. Yeah, it's fairly brief, I would say. I feel like Dorian
Mm-hmm.
and Kale's point of view are
Yeah, they're
are
short.
pretty minimal for sure.
Mm-hmm. But I do like getting them. It's fun.
Hmm.
I like multiple point of views. I think that's something I didn't know about myself as a reader until I started getting them. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do like not just trusting one person's perspective. This
Right.
is
And then you
nice.
don't miss things, when they bring stuff
Uh-huh.
up later and you're like, the fuck did that
What?
happen?
Yeah. All right. So Dorian Havliard, Crown Prince of Adarlan. He is apparently a handsome young man. Seems
Mhm.
well trained as royalty, kind of like in the way he speaks, is what Celaena notes. Has blue eyes, and it's noted that no one knows where they come from. So I'm going to guess that like his parents don't have that.
Well,
And
they say that.
Raven,
They say
yeah.
his dad does not and his mom doesn't either. Like they point blank
So
are like, don't know where
or
those pretty blue eyes come from.
yeah, and you'll note like you'll note in a lot of this, I like to know eye color. I did the same thing in Throne of Glass. As humans, we know that eye color is typically related to heritage, so it's fun to follow the eye trail. Sort of like paper trail, but
The eye trail, the blood trail, the last name
yes.
trail.
Oh my gosh, wait, we get so many more last names in this series. Everybody's got a fucking last name except
They
for
do have
Kane.
last names.
But it's such a
It's like Cher.
difference.
It's like Cher,
Pain.
Madonna, Kane.
Beyonce.
It's all the same vibe, right?
Oh, it's funny. Well, Dorian is about 20 years old, so just a little older than Celaena, a little bit younger than Chaol, and is described as a ladies' man. Clearly,
Mhm.
winking at everybody. Okay. Um, I did note that he has a cruel brother and he longs to escape his father. And
Mhm.
this quote from when he first meets Celaena tells me a lot about, I think, who he maybe is internally, because it's off of your first meet with a prince in a slave camp. Maybe not what I was expecting. He says with boredom, I don't quite comprehend why you would force someone to bow when the purpose of the gesture is to display allegiance and respect. It's clear that you respect me, Duke Parrington, but you and I very well know that she has no love for my family. So perhaps your intent is to humiliate her. I think she's had enough of that. It just feels like a window into maybe who he is and very at
Mm.
odds with what I would expect. It's like almost kind.
Mhm.
I don't know if we could call it like strictly kind, but it's closer there than evil.
I feel like it's a window into I mean, we know very little about Dorian so far, but he does seem kind. He seems different than his father. And you have
Yep.
to think too. So Duke Parrington is there in that moment. Clearly somebody that's like in the good graces of his daddy, because Duke is the person who picks Kane, and that's who the king is like expecting to win. But once we ask Duke Parrington and everybody else to leave, it's just Dorian and Celaena and Chaol in the room. That's when he's like, I'll bargain with you. I will lessen the length of your servitude if you win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, that I think deepens a little bit of maybe not just his kindness, but how deeply he wants to push back against his dad, do something different, make,
Hmm.
an impression.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I see that and I get that impression. Um Anything else to note about Sir Dorian?
He just says that Celaena is beautiful and her eyes sparkle.
Oh, they both think each other is pretty.
And they say they have very similar personalities. So,
Yes, similar humor. Ooh, okay.
see
All
what
right,
happens.
so I had a couple more characters that we're gonna like power through these, okay? I'm just gonna name drop, fact drop next. All right, so Duke Parrington, a red faced man with obsidian eyes, large man, thinning hair, wears reds and oranges, and is the one who is kind of sponsoring Caltaine in Rifthold and courting her. Next, we have the King of Adarlan, doesn't show much affection for his son, and he has a blade named Nothung. We note blade names in our other series. I figured I'd drop it here too. Caltaine Rumpier seems quite full of herself and is obsessed with marriage, which, I mean, understandable. It's the custom of the time. And she has a lot of ladies in waiting around her who are clearly a little sick of hearing her talk. And I did have a good giggle at Celaena knocking the flower pot off and trying to hit her on the head. And then
That
and then
was
Celaena being like up in the sky, like, oh, where'd that come from? Huh.
Didn't she like back away a little bit? Like they
Yeah.
don't need to know I did that.
Now Kane, one named Kane, he's another champion, and he's sponsored by Duke Parrington. He also has obsidian eyes. He is a brute of the king's army and wears a large black ring of a large ring of black iridescent stone on his finger. That's brought up twice. And then Knox Owen, kind, gray-eyed, creates a bond with, quote, Lillian from Paranth from Paranth Terracin, and is good at archery.
He
Then
makes me nervous.
Knox makes you nervous. He seems
He
sly.
seems really, yes, he seems sly. And the fact that she has heard of him and he is from the same area that she's originally from just makes me nervous with her trying to be a different person.
Okay,
And him
fair.
like getting a little closer to her. And she's like, oh, let me show you how to do stuff. She's an infamous person. She is Celaena Sardothien is well known. Now she is clearly not being Celaena Sardothien, but I'm just a little nervous us being friendly with Knox Owen. He seems
I mean, like,
nice but sly.
yes, and I think it's so interesting that like she doesn't trust a lot of people, but she's like, here, let me show you how to better throw this dagger.
Yeah, I thought that was
Why?
curious.
Why you be nice? But
And
also
we're
like,
supposed to like
okay,
hide our
find an ally.
talents.
But also maybe allies are necessary, so I don't know. It's a dangerous game, that's for sure. Then we have Nehemia Yitger, or the Princess of Eelway. She's stunning, long, lean, creamy brown skin, brown eyes, and is known as the Light of Eelway, and known amongst the slaves in the camp for her beauty, bravery, and being a smuggler of information for rebel groups. Now, Celaena notes she's not sure if that's really true or not, but that's what she heard while she was in the slave camp.
But she does note that her hands are pretty calloused, as if she knew how to use a sword or a dagger or weapons. So it makes her go, maybe I could believe that. Maybe I could see that more.
Absolutely. Okay, so I am sure we're both going to have some questions when it comes to this because we're only 15 chapters in of how many books? Is it 8? I can't remember. I've been
It's
counted.
9.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven,
8.
8. Okay. We are 15 chapters into an 8-book series, so we clearly have some questions about where is this headed? My 3. Why would Dorian go out of his way to specifically seek Celaena to be his champion? Just her notoriety, but like that's a big deal. Why? I need to know more about Celaena's childhood. Okay, I need to know about these old powers, this dead family, the territory with rebels, the library with magic books. I'm ready for the magic. Okay. I'm ready. And what are you up to, Nehemia? Because even Celaena's like, you're a little sus.
Why you here, girl?
What's this?
Yeah.
So those are my questions.
Same thing on needing to know Celaena's background. You know, who was she before being orphaned and found by the King of the Assassins? You mentioned this quote, but even at 8, she knew that life with Arobin, right? Arobin, with a new name that no one would recognize but someday fear, was a chance to start over, to escape the fate that led her to leap into the icy river. She can read, she can play the piano, or once could play the piano. So I said, is she of noble birth? Was she a member of the royal family that was murdered and she got out of the castle?
That is exactly where my mind went the first time I read this, because think about the time period we're in. And the only people who would have access to that type of skill or information would be of nobility, whether you're in the court of something like of a higher up birth. And the other thing is maybe that's stuff she learned after she left. Maybe it's stuff she learned in the Assassin's Keep. It does say that the assassins have to be more refined. So I don't know. Could be a little bit of both, but I think you're onto something there for sure. And I noted the same thing.
I'm curious how she ended up in the salt mines. And then I'm wondering, is that what Assassin's Blade, the book is, and why people read that book out of order or in a weird order? I'm like, are we gonna get that, or are we gonna have to wait a while to understand what that may be? So for some of you, especially when you pick up a box set, if you do, like the one behind me, I was confused last week. Autumn and I were chatting after the end of A Court of Silver Flames, and I was like, oh, wait, what book are we starting with? Because I had Assassin's Blade as the first book in the series that I purchased, when in reality, it should be Throne of Glass. So if you also pick up the box set and you're like, well, why are they starting out of order? We're not starting out of order. We are reading in print order. So we are
Yep.
reading it the way that the author intended it to be read. Just so
Yes.
y'all
Yes.
understand that, because I also was like, wait, when do we read this book? I rearranged my box set. Um, I would love to know our time frame compared to Akatar. Is this before? Is this after? You know, they mentioned 2,000 years since Fae were in this area. Could it be after? Or is it happening simultaneously? Is this one of those worlds on worlds on worlds that, like Meryl and Reese, you know, those things that were briefly mentioned in our later books of Akatar? So I'm just curious, like, when this lines up, since we
Hmm.
know that they do connect in some way, shape, or form. The mass verse is all connecting. We've got some half-eaten hounds that are laying around the palace, and we have a champion, the Eye Eater, who was ripped to ribbons. Are they killed by the same thing? Are they killed by different things? What's killing doggies? What's killing people? We should maybe keep our eyes open, Celaena. And then we touched on this briefly, but there's so many magical things mentioned in these first 15 chapters. And the crest is a golden dragon, essentially. So are there dragons in this universe? Are we getting like Game of Thrones style dragons and sword fighting and courtly intrigue and witches and pirates and fairies and all the things? I
All the
would be more than happy
things.
to have all the magical things. I
Yeah,
would
me
be
too.
okay with that.
Me too. And I think, they say magic is outlawed. Therefore, we have to see it somewhere.
Yeah. Well, they even say that like the fairies are believed to be tucked into, you know, the wild parts of the world. And don't we say, now I'm gonna scroll back up to our world building here for just a second. We talk about that oak walled forest where
Uh-huh.
they spend the night, and where Celaena feels a little weird and finds those flowers at her feet after waking up. And they say that that forest is a divide between the civilized countries of the East and the uncharted lands of the West. The West holds that witch kingdom, but if it is uncharted lands, is that where the fairies are hiding? Are they, you know, they say they're in the pockets of the wild. So
Yeah. Exciting.
perhaps they
So
are
much
still
to
here. I feel
discover.
like they're still here. So much to discover and so many books to do it in.
Yay. Well, I'm going to jump into our heroine's journey today. And while we have only met Celaena for a brief moment, one of the things I already love about her journey is in these opening chapters, when she's presented with her freedom, she knows that it doesn't show up looking easy or comfortable. It's a risk and not a guarantee. And after everything she's lived through, losing her family, being forced to flee the only home she's ever known, and then raised by an assassin and surviving a slave camp, she's suddenly presented with that choice. Stay where she is and accept the life that's been handed to her, or take a chance on something uncertain for the possibility of something better. And she chooses the competition. I think there's something very relatable in that, because in our own lives, the opportunities that end up changing us do not often arrive when we feel ready for them, nor do they arrive wrapped up in a pretty bow. They're usually showing up when we're already exhausted, scared, grieving, busy, or conflicted, or convinced that maybe we aren't qualified for them. And they ask us to trust ourselves before we have proof that things will even work out. But what I think makes Celaena so interesting here is she doesn't just say yes to this opportunity, right? She really goes for it. She believes in herself. She's like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to win. And that despite everything she's been through, she still lets herself be funny, dramatic, observant, proud, and honestly, like a little wild at times, throwing pots off of the edge and, just being herself. And she takes time to notice the beautiful things of the world, like the stars and the colors of the leaves in the forest. And she still makes jokes. She still has many opinions, and there's something powerful about that because it would be understandable if the course of her life made her more cold or closed off. But instead, she shows us that difficult experiences, they can shape us and they don't have to take away from ourselves. And that resilience doesn't always look serious or hardened, but sometimes it looks like keeping your sense of humor and caring about how you look in your beautiful dress and dreaming anyway, taking the opportunity and believing that even if life knocks you down over and over again, there still might be something worth reaching for at the end. And maybe there is a lesson here for all of us that we don't get to choose every chapter of our story, but we do get to choose whether or not we stop looking for freedom when it finally appears.
From the moment we meet Celaena, she's pretty powerful, right? Like we're very aware of who she is as a person and her abilities. But not just because she can fight, not just because she can kind of hold her own against these like 23 most dangerous men in the kingdom, but because she knows what she wants, right? I think that's also very powerful. She wants freedom and she is willing to fight for it and do what it takes. But I think what stands out most isn't her strength for me personally. It's what she tells herself in the moments that matter. And it's that line that we talked about and we read a few times, I will not be afraid. Because it's not that she isn't scared, but rather she refuses to let that fear make her choices for her. And that feels a little more familiar to our lives, I think, because, most of us aren't fighting in like a Hunger Games esque competition, right?
Yeah.
That's not where my life has taken me. But we are showing up to things that scare us every day, right? Episodes and episodes ago, I mentioned going to a book bedazzling event, which is a little scary, right? You're going to meet up with people that you've never met before, but maybe have similar interests with, and still had to show up for that. You have to speak up for yourself. Sometimes you have to start over. You have to go after something that maybe you're not even sure you're ready for sometimes. And in those moments, it can be easy to just wait and back up and go, I'll wait until I'm a little braver, until I'm more prepared, a little more certain if I want to do this. But Celaena doesn't wait. She decides what she wants matters more than that fear. So she shows up anyway. And I think that's what her journey is teaching us so far. Not that we have to become fearless, but learning that we can be afraid and still choose to go after the life that we want.
I know you want to keep going. I know you want to turn the page, but we got to close the book on this one.
But hey, every epic needs a cliffhanger, right? So let's savor the suspense.
Remember to like, share, subscribe, and write a review.
And before you remove your bookmark to prepare for next week, we will be reading chapters 16 through 42. So a big chunk, guys, but we got a lot of books to get through by October.
Remember, whether you're conquering your own kingdom or just cozying up with a good book, you are the main character of your own epic tale.
Okay, queens, for real now, put that book down, hold your crown high, and we will catch you on the next page.